I'd like to call this board meeting to order, please. If you wish to speak during the hearing of the citizens, please pick up a card in the back of the room and bring it to our assistant, Kathy Tompkins. At the appropriate time, I will call you up. We will now do the flag salute under the direction of retired Captain Dean Crum. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the flag. We said it?
We did it.
Oh, God. It's, our student is not here. Special presentations. Missy Corcoran, special presentation. Deborah, 5B Model Schools. Deborah Guy Cologne.
You're close, Jackalone.
What is it?
Jackalone.
Jackalope. Oh, with a G.
Like there's a Jack and he's alone. Yes,
Thank
very
you.
good.
It's a G in this paper, though.
It is. It's in a good old Italian name.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you guys. I'm really happy to be here in front of you tonight. And before we move on with our PBIS celebration, I wanted to share a very interesting fact with all of you. Not sure if you know this, but Florida Department of Education has designated this week, February 3rd, as Student Services Week in Sarasota, in the whole state of Florida. Sarasota County has over 300 staff that are classified as student service team members, and those include our school health team, our school counselors, our school psychologists, our school social workers, our homeschool liaisons, and our truancy team. So as I stand here before you, I'm really honored to be a part of that team that works incredibly hard to support our students every single day. But now for the really good stuff. I'm really pleased to introduce Rex Ingrick, who is our district PBIS coordinator. He has been in this role for 25 years, and this year he has taken us to new heights. So without further ado, Rex.
All right, thanks, Deb.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to celebrate our PBS Model Award winners, and they're right here in front, and I'm looking forward to introducing them to you. Our district has 5 schools which were designated by the state PBIS Model Schools for the 18-19 school year. These schools earned this designation by exemplifying high levels of PBIS implementation fidelity. And again, PBIS is Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. I'm so used to acronyms that I think we all are, but I wanted to say it one time. You're welcome. For demonstrating generally low rates of exclusionary discipline rates when compared to similar school types across the state of Florida, and for demonstrating equitable student outcomes. So now let's meet the school staff. Each school was asked to highlight a portion of their positive behavior intervention support program as an introduction today. So we're going to start with Ashton because they've actually brought some students with them, so they want them to go first so that they can go home and do their homework and study for their test tomorrow and get good sleep, right? Okay. All right. So in an effort to help establish the PBIS expectations as part of their school culture, last year Mrs. Griffith's second grade class turned the expectations into a song. These students went on the news and visited classrooms to teach the song to all students and staff at Ashton. Here today to sing you that song are some of the original creators who helped Ashton achieve gold medal school status through great creativity and a positive message for all. So will you please come forward and be right in front of the stand right there, and then you can face out to the audience and sing your song.
Walk at all times, follow the dress code, always use to give me 5. Use good manners, complete all assignments, follow directions the first time asked.
You can stay right there just for a little minute, and you can help Mr. Rusko hold the banner. Oops. All right. Thank you very much. Now, if you can stay with the banner and just slide yourself down. I know the students need to leave, but we're going to keep going. Keep going. I know it's just a moment of celebration, so we're going to keep going. Next, we have Fruitville Elementary School, and they are in the bronze model school. So the Fruitville Elementary Pirates are very proud to announce a new component to their PBS program called the Fruitville Fleet. Students and staff are assigned to one of 10 ships, each representing a color and character trait. These ships meet bi-weekly to discuss the character trait of the month and participate in community building activities. This system builds a more positive school community by encouraging participation in sporting and cultural co-curricular activities between the ships and promoting leadership development. Fruitville has also launched a new PBS progress monitoring tool using the Live School app, which allows teachers and school staff to reward students showing PBS expectations. Each point awarded goes directly to the students' ship points and adds to the friendly competition. Fruitville Pirates are excited to strive for the Gold Level PBS Model School Award this coming year. So please. Make sure I get it right side up. Got it. All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Next up, Philippi Shores Elementary School, and they got the Silver Award for the Model School. Philippi Shores IB World School is proud of how their PBIS program exemplifies the International Baccalaureate Primary Years program. Celebrating students for their use of the IB attitudes and traits, Philippi recognizes students daily, weekly, and monthly with Falcon Dollars, Student of the Month, quarterly recognition celebrations, and IB Stars, striving toward acknowledging respect and responsibility, as well as through cafeteria space race, bus charts, and perfect attendance for our classes and students. Be responsible, be respectful, and be an IB star. Congratulations. Okay, next is Atwater, and Atwater Elementary School earned a gold model school status. At Atwater Elementary School, we choose to create an environment that is safe, respectful, welcoming, and promotes diversity. Through our positive behavior support program and our school-wide HEART expectations, hardworking, empathetic, active learner, respect, and trustworthy, we teach our students the tools needed for them to not only behave in a positive way, but also take pride in what they do on a daily basis, whether at school or in the community. We enable them to partake in a society where diversity is embraced and individuality is celebrated, and this is especially evident when our students school-wide chant our school declaration together. It truly is a sight to see. It serves as a great reminder for all stakeholders of the behavior expectations required for them to be an Atwater All-Star. Congratulations. Okay, and our last school for this evening is Gulfgate Elementary, and they also earned the gold medal status. Gulfgate Elementary School is very proud of their PBIS program. Much of the original development team that attended the initial training by the University of South Florida in 2009 is still involved in the program, giving Gulfgate a uniquely consistent and informed group of people to implement the program. The program is fluid with the constant input of staff and students to keep the incentives fresh and interesting. The program is designed around being star students and earning gold tickets. These expectations of being safe, timely, active learners, respectful and responsible fit the county initiatives of Everyday Counts and Civility Squad. Some of the favorite initiatives are Popcorn Day, Positive Phone Call Home, and a Positive Office Visit. Congratulations to Gulfgate. At this time, if we would ask the board members to come on down, I think they want to get a group picture if possible.
Yes, and the banners are bigger than I thought. Perfect. All right, for the
When did that happen?
ready? 1, 2, 3.
That's right. Good luck with that. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. I think you got everyone. This one? You get all of one? I got one. You can give the. I know they're next to it. So I thank you very much.
Deb, Rex, I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work, because I know how many years you've been working on this, and it really is making a big difference in the lives of our students. So thank you both. You're both stars as well. Thank you.
Go Gators.
Our next presentation. Thank you. Our next presentation is from Chief Timinas. Tim? I just saw him. Oh, here he is.
Tell him to stand up.
Leave him alone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, board members, superintendent, I brought with me Lieutenant Oakes, Sergeant Eilerman, and Lieutenant Lorenz. Today we have a first that we presenting to our officers here at the school police department. We have two recipients. If I could have Officer Chauffeur as well as Officer McMillan come forward. The first life-saving award is we're going to give to Officer Chauffeur, who is assigned to Northport High School. On November 22nd, 2019, at approximately 0800 hours, Officer Chauffeur responded to the clinic in Northport High School in reference to a sick student. Upon her arrival, she observed a 14-year-old student who appeared to be incoherent, vomiting a white, frothy substance. The nurse advised her that the student had ingested a Snickers, which is slang for a dab pen containing heroin and some other type of narcotic. Officer Chauffeur tried to communicate with the student. However, the student was only able to mumble. The student's health continued to digress quickly. His level of consciousness was declining. His lips started to turn white. Officer Chauffeur identified this as cyanosis and determined that the student was lacking oxygen. Based on her training experience, she determined that there was a significant medical emergency and that she observed that the student was overdosing. At this point, she administered 4 milligrams of Narcan. The student started to regain a low level of consciousness, but remained disoriented and confused. Northport EMS responded and transported the student to Sarasota Memorial Hospital in Northport. Officer Chauffeur's quick response and recognition of a medical emergency, along with her immediate action of administering Narcan, resulted in saving the life of the student involved. A failure to act in this situation could have led to a tragic outcome. It has been determined that Officer Chauffeur's actions qualify her for the life-saving award per General Order 13.1A3, as the student was in imminent danger of succumbing to an illness or injury unless some type of action was taken. Officer Chauffeur should be commended for a job well done. And we have a second recipient, Officer John McDaniel. On December 5th, 2019, at approximately 8:50 in the morning, Officer McDaniel was notified via radio of a vehicle crash that had just occurred on the backside of the campus at Atwater Elementary. While en route, he heard that a vehicle had crashed through the fence and it was now submerging in the lake. Upon his arrival, Officer McDaniel observed a partially submerged vehicle in the water and that the vehicle was continuing to sink. He could see that there was at least one female occupant in the vehicle. Officer McDaniel, with no regard for his own personal safety, immediately jumped into the water in an effort to get her out before the entire vehicle was submerged. Due to the water pressure, he could not get the door open. At this time, he asked her to roll down the window. She started to roll down the window, but panicked when the water started to enter her vehicle, at which point she rolled the window back up. Officer McDaniel then swam to the other side of the vehicle in an attempt to open the passenger side door. The door would not open as well. Officer McDaniel was able to convince the driver to open the passenger window. He was able to pull the driver from the vehicle through the window as the vehicle was sinking. The vehicle was fully submerged within minutes of him freeing her from it. He kept the driver afloat, assisted her to the shoreline, where several staff members had created a human chain to help them pull them both out of the water up the steep embankment. At this time, Northport Fire Rescue and Police Department had arrived on scene. Officer McDaniel's quick response and immediate action resulted in freeing the driver from a vehicle that was rapidly sinking. The delay would have resulted in the driver being stuck underwater with a high probability of drowning. A failure to act in this situation could have led to tragic outcome. It has been determined that Officer McDaniel's actions qualify him for a life-saving award per General Order 13.1A.3, as the driver was in an actual life-threatening situation and had to be removed safely by Officer McDaniel. This physical act alone aided in the preservation of life. Officer McDaniel should be commended for a job well done. And also today, we have the driver, Donna Bustamante, is here, and her sister, Nerys Bustamante, would like to say a few words if she would come forward to the podium.
Thank you. I just want to say, on behalf of my sister, myself, and our entire family, thank you so much. We are very grateful. We want to express our gratitude to you, and we just, for the heroic act and priceless act of saving my sister's life. All I can say is that I wish that you always be blessed with love, health, and peace in your life. Thank you so much.
And along with this goes a letter of commendation as well as a life-saving pin. So for Officer Chauffeur, thank you for everything that you do every day down there. And also for you, Officer McDaniel, thank you again. Here's your life-saving pin. Thank you very, very much. So officers, if you'd like to come up and help us with the picture, school board members, we'll have you guys go right out in the front.
Line up in front of the podium. One, two, three.
And then something at Pine View. Oh, is it? Good.
Oops.
Mrs. Brown?
Before y'all left, Chief, I just wanted to say that this is, an outstanding example of what our police department does over and above what we would have expected. You guys are there, and it is so much more than a guy with a gun keeping us from some deranged kid or something. And we had a discussion this morning about a principal who was upset because the officer was working over here with one child that was going out, and then there was another one over here, and what are they going to do? It's, I guess, a sad state of affairs when we have more than one kid at a time at a school that may need to be Baker acted. But you explained to me how you all know the rules. You know how you have to go through the assessment. There's things that you have to go, and you make determination then, is this something that we can be handled? Is this something that, his life is in danger, or maybe somebody else's? And then what do you do? It is just amazing how you do it. And I think that, maybe we need to stop, when someone complains they don't like what we're doing, we're not doing enough. I ask myself, well, what would you want us to do instead? And I mean, the amount of things that we ask of our police resource officers and you, the police chief, is remarkable. And saving lives wasn't on that list, but I guess that's something you're going to do anyway. And I really want to thank you, and I appreciate all you're doing, for our students, for our schools, and for our staff. Thank you so much for what you do.
I just like to say congratulations on the two new people you have recently hired, and congratulations to those who may save lives. The officer who pulled the woman out of the car. I mean, it's just amazing. You don't think you're going to get into that when you become a school resource officer. But a school resource officer is just that, into everything. Anything that matters or happens, you guys are on the front. I'm so glad that we have our own police department. I'm just so proud of you all. I'm proud of Sarasota County for having its own police force. Thank you, Tim. Miss Chief Edis, excuse me. Jane Goodwood, you have to be formal when you're up here.
Well, I come from a family of first responders, and so I understand first responding a little bit because of my background and growing up in a family. But when you're a first responder, you do whatever it takes, wherever it takes you. And I think we are so lucky, blessed to have your leadership, Chief Enos. And your officers are spectacular. Each and every one of you mean a great deal to me and to us and to our students. And they tell us that very frequently. So I think we're very fortunate to have this wonderful, remarkable police force, and I want to thank you for your leadership.
Ditto. Ditto. That's it. Nobody else is like it. Next on our agenda is the superintendent's report.
I'm sorry. Actually, there's one additional presentation. If Carol LaShawn could come to the front, we'll have presentations from potential superintendent search firms.
So, good afternoon.
Sorry, I don't have that on my agenda, but glad to hear from you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair Zucker, board members, Superintendent Corcoran, and Mr. Hardy. I'd like to update you on where you are in the hiring of a search firm for superintendent. At the January 21st board workshop, you shortlisted 2 firms to make presentations tonight. That they were FSBA and Ray and Associates. So they are waiting in the wings. They're going to make a 15-minute presentation and then allow a period of time for question and answers. So FSBA will present first. Okay?
Thank you. Here comes a VIP.
Familiar face.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Good evening.
What I say.
Ready to go? Good evening. My name is Bill Vogel, and I'm representing the Florida School Board Association this evening. And I wanted to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present a proposal tonight to conduct your superintendent search services. I know you've received this information, but I'd like to run through the PowerPoint quickly and then answer any questions that you all might have. Okay, Ms. Zucker? First.
Doesn't seem like the volume is.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can't hear.
Got it, Brandon?
It's not you.
Oh, I turned
Been out throughout
my
the whole-
speaker on here.
Well, I've got my speaker.
Mine's not you.
I can hear. Mine was working.
Mine's on now. It wasn't on.
Okay.
Don't get nervous, Dr. Vogel.
Thank you. We're ready to go.
He's like, wait, what?
Ready to go. Our team, we like to talk about it as a three-legged stool. Andrea Messina is our executive director with the School Board Association, and she's a former school board member, director of training with FSBA, and now executive director. And so she brings the school board member perspective to our searches. Myself, I'm a former superintendent in 2 Florida school districts, and I also worked for the Florida Association of District School Superintendents doing training, and I also work in labor relations. So prior to being a superintendent, I was in HR, so I have that background also on the team. John Reichert also works for the Superintendent's Association and of course, FSBA, helping with the superintendent searches. And he is a former executive director of HR in Seminole County. And he also does a lot of training throughout the state of Florida. He's actually worked in more than half the school districts doing HR training and HR studies. So that's the team that we bring to the district to do your search. Why should you choose our firm? Well, first, we know Florida. The blue dots represent all the appointed superintendent districts, and more are coming on board every day. And these are the districts in green that we have provided searches for since 2015. You can see St. John's. We were able to, very fortunate to your search in Sarasota, Alachua, Flagler, Brevard, and Volusia. And we are currently working with Flagler County, Escambia County, and Martin County. And what works out, our timing is absolutely perfect because we're just finishing up Flagler County, and the other 2 districts that we're working with, we're not moving forward on those till October or November. So the timing for your search is perfect as far as our scheduling. We maintain a network of national contacts. We're very pleased. We're members of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searches. So we have access to different search groups throughout the entire country, and that's a real help for us as we're recruiting out of state candidates. In fact, and we just received our candidates from a district we're working with right now. We had candidates from 20 states. So we bring a national perspective. We also have the contacts in almost every state. So we have people that we can call to do reference checking or whatever work that we need to do. We also have had experience in recruiting non-traditional candidates, minority candidates. We have communication networks with organizations such as Broad, and so we do have those contacts too. Also, one of the things that we really specialize in is on-site representation and facilitating community meetings. And any meetings that the board would like us to conduct, we would like to do that. We've done community forums here before. In the past, in some of our searches, we have done internal focus groups for different employee groups. If the board would like us to go ahead and meet with those groups, we're able to do that. And there's no additional charge or any other cost for as many of those groups that you'd like us to meet with or get information from. We're also available 24 hours to all candidates, the board, and the media. And I know this is very important in the search. There are things that come up at the last minute, or board members have a question, or the candidates have questions. We are always available to them. And one of the things that we have been really pleased to hear about is that sometimes candidates in the past in some searches have a difficult time finding out information, the latest information. And we've heard a lot of positive comments from candidates saying that they always know what the status is in the search. We're very familiar with the Florida Public Records Law, the Sunshine Law, and we also extend our availability to the media. And we have a good relationship, and media knows that they can call us anytime, and we're very responsive to them during the search process. We also know your board members, your community, Florida's education and legislative landscape. I think this is really important. I have the opportunity to attend the superintendent meetings. I was there 2 weeks ago. I'm up to speed on all the current legislation. I personally am also a member of the Regional Education Laboratory through Florida State University through the Southeast. I just got back from there yesterday. So we're up to speed on all of the latest legislation issues and anything that comes up, and that's very helpful during a search. Proximity reduces travel costs, and I have a home that's very close here, Terracea Island, and I'm less than 40 minutes away, and any travel expenses come from that location there. So I'd be available, to be here at any time. And the other thing that we do is we make a commitment to being available whenever the board needs us to be available. And I looked at my travel from the last time we did this search, and I was here more than 20 times. And so the time that we put in, whether for the number of meetings that you'd like us to facilitate or the time, we make that commitment to be on site for you, whatever it takes to do that. We also are very involved in coalitions throughout the state and in Florida education, which I've talked about, and aware of the challenges that everybody is facing in public education now. We use a team approach, and we work very closely with your team. We ask the board, we usually work with the board chairman, and then the board would assign someone for us to be contact on staff. And we work very closely with those people using a team approach. And most of our meetings will have 2 of us here, or maybe even 3 of us. Mr. Riker, Mrs. Messina, and myself will be here as many meetings as possible. But I would be the main contact that you would have, and I would be here at all of the meetings. We also offer additional services, and this is really important in hiring a new superintendent. We usually during our interview process, we ask that the candidates bring forward a transition plan, but we facilitate that transition plan. We also are available to help with contract negotiations, and in all the searches we've done, we've not had any breakdowns in contracts. When the board selects a superintendent, we've been able to go ahead and make sure that the contract is signed and it is fair for all concerned. We're also available to help with evaluation instruments and in preparing those. And we provide, through the Superintendent's Association, a mentor for every new superintendent that is hired to make sure that that person gets off to a smooth start and maintains that momentum. Every one of our searches that we've done is different. And everyone is personalized and customized to the board's processes that they would like to use. Many boards will use the community forums. They would like a citizens advisory committee like we did here. We work with those situations. Like I said, so any kind of customization or anything that the board would like, we can go ahead and accommodate. And in fact, the last time we have recommendations we can bring forward, and then we will adjust those recommendations to the board's priorities. We're here to assist and help you find the best match for your district. And again, like I said when we started, we looked at your timeline, and we can definitely accommodate it. If we're selected, we're ready to start. And our first meeting, I would propose, to be February 18th. I think we could get a lot of the logistics done already. I know your brochure from last time was a state model. In fact, most districts that are doing searches now are using, not exactly your brochure, but this brochure. I think we can get everything moving, and we can meet your timelines and do a complete search and have that completed so your superintendent could start according to the schedule that you would like. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Robinson?
So I have multiple questions, but I'll divide them up into the last time you were here and this one, search. So I understand you said you customize things, and so I appreciate that. But in a generality, was the last search process we had, was that a normal process?
There were.
I mean, is that indicative of the type of?
That was a search process that the board helped us design. It was similar to other searches that we have done in the past, and there were differences in the search process too. For example, some school boards like the firm to bring them a list of semifinalists after we worked together to define the qualities that the board wants. Some boards they tell the search firm to go ahead and bring us 8 to 12 or 15 candidates. And that works out fine if the board wants it. In this search, the board wanted a citizens advisory committee, which the board was involved in selecting, to go ahead and vet the candidates and then bring a list of candidates to the board. So that was one difference.
So one of the things that occurred, as you know, our superintendent ended up exiting over a harassment issue. But during that search, there was some harassment issues that we're still dealing with today. This was still illegal over those very harassment issues. But one of the things was that there were things about other harassment issues in the past of that superintendent that I would have thought that you would have found out because you had connections in all these other districts. So can you address that issue? Because those issues foretold the end of the story of what happened to that superintendent. If you read the beginning of the story, the end of the story wasn't a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Correct. The first thing we do, I'll run through the process and I'll address that directly. First thing we do is we do background checks through Greenspoon Martyr Law Firm, and they're very in-depth background checks. We also check, we do internet searches and reference checks. And what we did, and I know at the time you were not on the board, you were not a sitting board member, we then check the the DOE database to see if there are any outstanding professional practices decisions. And there were none of the candidates on that. And then we look at past evaluations. And we also go further and ask that the HR department of the district obtain the personnel file from the previous district. In this particular case you're talking about, the individual was here since 2007. So, and when HR received the personnel file, they did not receive, the sending district did not send the entire personnel file. And that's what the issue you're talking about. They didn't send the entire file. By law, the law says all records means everything, whether it's in an investigative file or wherever it is, if it's a school or anything. So that was one breakdown on it. The report, though, we gave to every board member that was a sitting board member, did a summary of all the any criminal violations, and it was also noted that there was an ongoing investigation in the district going on at the time. So, we based on the information that we had, the other thing in this particular case you're referring to is the individual was working here for many, many years also. So I don't know if that information was known at the time either.
Okay. So those are my questions about the process. And I do want to comment that the interaction I had with you during that process when I was a candidate led me to realize that, you know, the respect that my fellow board members have given you is well deserved. You are very even-keeled, knowledgeable individual. So I do want to point that out. You mentioned that you could adhere to our timeline. I wasn't aware that we had ever approved a timeline. So what timeline were you referring to?
That's why I didn't say a timeline.
I thought you said we can adhere to your timeline.
Right. Whatever timeline you decide to set, we can go ahead and meet it. That's why I didn't say. That's why I didn't say exactly.
I misunderstood.
We're together. No, my apologies.
My bad.
Good.
So, we've had a history of Sarasota where people have looked towards us, and we have been a magnet of good quality people, and so my question is we've had Wilma Hamilton and Lori White and people who were associate superintendents of schools, and then our last superintendent search, we kind of lowered the qualifications to executive directors and above. Do you think, given the stuff that's transpired and, where Sarasota's, sits in prestige to the other counties, that we would have a need to reduce our qualifications even further, keep them the same to executive director, or could we raise up the initial qualifications? Can you attract good quality candidates? Because I'm looking for a search firm. Will you need to lower it to say principal teacher, or will you keep it at executive director as we had last time, or do you think that the minimum qualification could be higher than that? You understand the question?
I think as a minimum, yes, sir. I think you got to at least keep it where you had it, and you could ramp it up. I really believe there are individuals that are waiting to apply for Sarasota County. And I am very passionate myself about Sarasota County. I know the expectations of the board, and I believe that this district is moving forward.
So I just want to make sure I reiterate this. You believe that if you were the search firm, you could attract good quality people who either met the minimum qualifications from before, if not, because we actually lowered them in the middle of the search firm. It was search process. So it was 5 years of executive director. We lowered it down to 3.
Right.
So if I hear you right, you believe that FSBA has the ability to attract the quality candidates that would meet or exceed the qualifications that we had last time, so there would be no reason to lower the qualifications.
Absolutely. I believe 5 is definitely a minimum. In fact, many of our searches, we have additional qualifications.
So what is the typical qualification when you look for a superintendent of our size and our statute? I'm trying to understand what type of candidates your firm can attract and bring into.
I think a good example of is by using the last the last search we just did in Volusia County. We had the chief operating officer from a large district. We had an associate superintendent from Dade. We had from Osceola, Dade, and then we had the director or the assistant superintendent for schools from Palm Beach. We had 3 doctorate level, number 2 or high top performing people in those districts, in large districts, and that's from Florida. Plus we had a strong field. Plus there were others that were not applying for that job. People were even saying to me, well, when is Sarasota coming up? What's that situation? So we can attract the top candidates for this job, highly qualified, experienced. And again, the board the last time, I believe, opened the qualifications up so non-traditional people could apply too. So that would be a decision that we would have to make together to see if you wanted to still have that qualification.
And thank you. That's the end of my question. I just want to close with, I'm still trying to keep an open mind of which 2 firms, but I got to say the number one reason why I would lean towards FSBA is because of you, Mr. Vogel, and having you on the search firm and the committee gives great weight. And so however I weigh the pluses and minuses, the biggest plus for FSBA is Bill Vogel. So thank you very much.
Well, I am very humbled that you say that, and thank you very much. I know you have a difficult decision tonight.
Mrs. Goodwin, you were up there.
I didn't, but I was pushing it at the time you called my name. I know that last time, Dr. Vogel, and of course, I am very involved in FSBA and am the president-elect, and I want to just make that known publicly, if there's anybody on this planet that doesn't know that, just so that we, right, Eric?
Yes, he works for you.
But I just wanted to state that the last time that we did the search, Scott Limpy was our COO, and he was very, very involved in collecting the applicant information. We had some things that we did relative to one of our administrators. Is that something that you would think we would do again this next time with someone, or is that something that you're prepared to help us with minimal effort from an executive?
My recommendation is that the last time the applications went to your HR department directly, my recommendation would be they'd come to FSBA.
Yes.
Okay.
And that would take some of that time element away from internally. And all we would need is just a person that you designate for us to work with. Whoever that you would like on the staff level, we're fine with working with someone, and of course then the board chairman.
Okay. I think we've covered the travel part of it. I always get a little squirrely when we have people coming in from other parts of the country, because you said 20 times that you were involved with us last time, which is, it's not once. Right. So that's important to me. But, it's important that we do this well and we do this right. And I think we do want to have that community piece. And is there anything that we did not do last time that you think is important? I know we all came up with a number of people for the committee and so forth and so on, and then we got down to the finalists. We had our community meetings at Riverview High School and so forth. Is there anything that anything you've gained about the community piece between 3+ years ago and now that would be informative for us in making this decision?
Yes, one thing that we didn't do the last time is we didn't have internal focus groups of those people that work for Sarasota County Public Schools. We've had great success in working with internal focus groups, including teacher and support organizations in our searches. And in fact, I have a letter of reference from the president of the Teachers Association recommending us in Volusia County, which is our most recent search. So not necessarily only that organization, but if you have other internal groups, I think it's always good to get their feedback too. And some of you were at the process that we used at the last time, where we were able to get a lot of information to that was very helpful, in the board coming up with their final qualities and moving forward.
Thank you. Mrs. Brown?
Yes, thank you. And yes, it does give us some comfort knowing who you are and what you've done. And I also like that you've put a ceiling on how much you're going to charge. That's good. The internal focus group, I think, is something that we really need. I think, more focus on, because it's our administrators, and our teachers and everyone who will be working with you. Yeah. And so I would like some of them to feel you out, to see how and they're probably the ones that have the questions that know, and I would like to make sure that we get feedback from them. Mm-hmm. Last time we got feedback and all of that, and then we came up here on the table, and I think it was, we didn't have a chance to talk amongst ourselves, because we can't, about, before we came back to vote, on how we felt about some of these comments that were had. So, after the comments came in, we didn't have a chance to discuss it, and it was a surprise to me how the vote came out. And it was, what do you do then? I would like to be able to have some way that we could have some discussion, and maybe rather than just, going down the line, I took A, B, C, so that maybe even if, is there another way that, Florida law, and how can board members come to a consensus rather than maybe pick A or B? Is there a way this is my first choice, my second choice, and give them a point value, and we put that in, and then we know what we want? I mean, I don't know, because I really didn't like the way it was a surprise, and we couldn't talk about it after someone said, well, I really like that one, and I mean, I couldn't discuss it. I mean, why I didn't, I want to be able to discuss amongst ourselves.
We can refine that part of the process to make sure all board members have that opportunity to hear from the other board members and decide. There are pros and cons on ranking system.
Mm-hmm.
And we will, as we work through the process, we can give you the pros and cons of both of the systems. We could definitely do that, and I've made a note of that. So that process can be refined.
Mrs. Ziegler?
Well, thank you for being here, and I echo the fact, having worked with you in the past and even in as of recent discussions as the transition has occurred, you've absolutely been a pleasure to work with. So I have nothing but accolades personally for you. I think you've always been transparent. I think, I think Mr. Robinson brought up one of the concerns, but I know I had addressed that, I think, initially, even well before this discussion happened, just about the district and the state of the district. So I have no question about your knowledge and the unique position, but the opportunity that we're in. So I think that really positions you guys well to support us. One thing that's really important to me, I want to echo emphatically what Mrs. Brown just said, because I think that was, however we go through that, I mean, if we can't learn from past experiences, then what is the purpose of education? So that definitely would be a highlight of mine. And I know in my experience, having worked with FSBA the last time, because to Mrs. Brown's point, we can't speak amongst each other, but certainly there was a lot of advisement, one-off conversations between, I'm sure, you and a number of board members, myself, and even including the executive director. So, but there is an element, and to clarify this, and maybe we need to put more onus on the search firm as far as direction. How much leaning of direction are we putting on the search firm versus deferring to the board? So best practices would be a great example. Whether it be, the one part, and I thought we did a survey internally. It's been some time and a lot. Mm-hmm. So I don't recall, but so I could be incorrect. And if you're saying we didn't do that, that
we did.
Concerns me, because that's a big part of, I would think when you're picking the leader, you need to know what staff thinks, because they're going to be directly impacted by that too. Did we not do a
we had a survey, but it was not a specific internal survey.
Oh, so it's just global.
It was global. We have done, in some of our searches, internal surveys also that have been tailor-made to those people that are working in the organization. So that's something we could do.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is we, like I said earlier, some searches, the board just puts the onus on us, say, we want you to bring us this number of candidates, 8 to 12, or whoever you think. Other times the board does not want us to make recommendations. We are very willing to make recommendations. For example, after the citizens, if you use a citizens committee, we are happy to say, yes, we agree with the citizens committee or not. And we're happy to, like you say, talk with each board member individually, or provide any input that you would like us to provide, to the extent that you want us to provide that.
Okay. And to that point, and I think that's something the board needs to discuss in general. This is nothing new, but I think one thing that's really important to me is ensuring that the information, I know you mentioned it as a pursuant to candidates, but also as board members, that we all have the same information at the same time and are in the know. I know you're actively, and that's not a negative, actively involved with the organization. So I certainly, right, but I certainly, and then that's right. But I certainly want to make sure that each board member has an equal weight into the process, into the discussion, into the knowledge, so that we can be successful, because I think that's going to be instrumental in this selection process.
Yes, and I agree, and that's a commitment that I certainly will make, to make sure that's the occasion. Because heard about some situations that were concerning, but that's a commitment we can make.
Okay. And then finally, again, going back to the timeline established, I had a question, but I think we already addressed that. You mentioned so you mentioned evaluations and the transition plan and evaluation instruments. Is that included in the cost of, as far as guidance as to contractual recommendations, best practices,
Yes.
things to stay away from, for example? Is that something that you guys
Yes, it is. It's included. And the other thing is the costs that we put down were maximum cost. Please be aware of that. We just put the maximum number down. For example, advertising, I think we had a $5,000 amount. Usually it's about a $3,000 advertising. So the cost where we put that down was just maximum. But
Okay.
you're correct. We will do that.
And so that, again, it comes down to, we would make the final decision as the board, but, bringing forward best practices, what you've seen in other districts or what have you, what works is what I understand.
Correct. Because we personalize every search to what the board would like, we will give you, for example, if you'd like internal feedback, which we didn't do last time, we're more than happy to do that. We can do that. If there's other things like you're saying, we can definitely put into the search.
Yeah, and I would just, for the record, I'm a big supporter of having a community committee of sorts. I think that's important. But like I said, my engagement with you has been wonderful. So I have significant confidence in that working relationship. I know the cost. See, it's been a while, but I feel like it was $25,000 back in 2016, maybe. So can you speak to the incremental cost?
Yes. The School Board Association looked at the amount of time and salary and the cost to doing the search and the time put into it. So that is a rate that was established by them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions for you, Dr. Vogel.
Well, thank you very much
think
for the
that we're all-
opportunity to present to you tonight. And we look forward to working with you should you choose us to do your search. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
As Jane disclosed, I'd like to disclose also that I'm still involved with FSBA. I was the past president. I'm now president of the Past President's Council. So I just want everybody to know that I have been involved. But my decision will be based simply on what I see and who I think is best. What's the next one? Ray and Associates. We're waiting for the next one, the next candidate. Where was that? No. Earn your living. Earn your living. Well, that's your decision. Welcome. Please take that podium over there to our right.
Pass these out to you.
Is that already in your book? We already have this.
Is it the same one, or is there more information?
There's more information.
It's more information. Okay.
Oh, yeah, a
No.
little bit different. Thank you.
No, we have that in our book.
And this one's different.
And do you have the clicker?
This is different.
And the cost is here, too.
Somebody Brandon?
$37,000.
It's Brandon. The tech man.
Hi. Hi.
Sure. Let me get Which one was it? We're just going to do this apart.
All right. Okay. Hold on a second. I'll get that started.
Actually, wait.
That's no, it's
the other one.
Oh, that's the other one? All right. That's all right. This one here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You can use either of these
Okay,
arrows.
perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
I don't have the
Wonderful.
cost for this. Did you see the cost for this?
It's on the left-hand side.
Okay. Well, we'll do a quick
Welcome.
introduction of us and who we are.
Good.
My name is Ryan Ray. I am the president of Ray & Associates, and very excited to be back here in the state of Florida tonight and having a discussion with you all. I'll let Sandy introduce herself.
And hello, I'm Sandy Giroux, and I am a Florida girl, spent 35 years in Palm Beach County, Florida. So we're excited to be here and looking forward to sharing a little bit about our group tonight and what sets us apart.
And
Eric was trying to give me something, but it was the wrong piece.
Here's the right piece.
Thank you.
She's got it in hers, too.
That's all
oh,
right.
you're fine.
Sorry for the confusion.
That's all right.
I know you are. Thank you.
And in your packet, you do have two different handouts on the right side. We're going to go through the shorter version. You will see it's a 2-page handout. The cover looks like this. The second page looks like this with highlights, so that we can kind of hit highlights for you tonight in the 15 minutes that we have.
Our long version is usually set for an hour or 45 minutes, so we just want to hit the highlights of why you should hire us today. Let me go ahead and start by saying we are the most experienced firm in the country, and as president, I'm prepared to start recruiting for a national search for you next week. Next week, we will be at AASA. It is the National Superintendent's Conference, which is going to be held in San Diego, California. And when we're there, we're interviewing candidates for potential jobs, and I would love to go ahead and have your flyer, have some information about you all, and be able to present that to candidates and start recruiting right away for you from a national perspective. You know, we do understand Florida. On the right-hand side of your packet there, you will see a letter of recommendation from a school board member at Hillsborough County. Sorry, left-hand side, where we just wrapped up that search in Hillsborough, and we are currently also doing the search in Marion County as well. In fact, we've done 14 searches in the state of Florida in the past. So we understand Florida, we understand the Sunshine Law, and we understand where you're coming from with that. It's also really important to go ahead and say, this is your team. So we're not here to sell a job, and then we kind of fade away in the distance and you have other people. So the two of us, we will be your team throughout this whole search. We just wanted to make sure that you understood that. So let me go ahead and say, this is your search, all right? Our process is flexible. This is the most important responsibility that you have as a school board member. And so we want to make sure that you know it's your search and that we're flexible with that. We're the most experienced search firm in the nation, over 40 years of business. We've never been bought out, we've never been sold, we've never merged, so we have that experience. We also customize the candidate profile, utilizing the board's stakeholders and public input in the process. So with it being your search, we'll meet with however many groups, individuals that you want us to meet with in your community. We're not going to tell you exactly who we should meet with. You know your community better than we do, and so we can give you suggestions such as we want to go ahead and meet with the union, meet with teachers, meet with principals, central office staff, and please let us meet with the students. That's our favorite group, by far.
And even before we meet with your community members, we will meet with each of you individually to get the important parts to you as a board member, what you're looking for in the next superintendent, because we know collectively what we've heard from group meetings, but we'll also have individual meetings with you. While you're talking, I'm going to pass on each end, the teacher and me, some sample flyers that we will create for your district that will just showcase. We've got a few from Florida that you can just look at.
We also utilize an online survey, and so we provide a variety of foreign language surveys for you to go ahead and for your community to take, and it's at no additional cost. We also have an experienced full-time office staff, which takes the burden off of the district staff. We don't want your employees to be working on this full-time. They have full-time jobs already. So that's why we have that full-time staff. You can go ahead and call us at any time of the hour. You're never going to get a recording from us. You'll have 3 or 4 people in the office, full-time staff, okay? We have the largest diverse recruiting network in the country. We have over 160 associates. And so that is great because when we start recruiting nationally, we have a big cast of a net that we can, big net that we can cast across the country. So if somebody applies from the Seattle area, I can call Jim Hager and say, what do I really need to know about this person? I can read things online, I can hear things in the paper, but we really want to have our ears on the ground. And as far as diversity, we've recruited and placed more women and minorities than any other firm in the country. How do we know that? We track who we place and we track who our competitors place. And we wear that as a badge of honor. We're very proud of that. In fact, over 40% of our staff and our associates are female or diverse. We aggressively recruit top candidates that are not looking for a job. You don't want a superintendent that's reading the want ads. You want a superintendent that has a good job now, right? And so it's our job to go and say, this is a search that you really need to look at. Sarasota County kind of fits your mold.
And one of the things that goes along with that, we've watched some of your board meetings, and one of the things we know that's been a discussion point for you is, as a board, do we want to decide to have no contact with candidates during the search until we get to the end and let the search firm do that? I will tell you that that fits in very nicely with our process, because if you hire us, we can be your liaison. We will be your eyes and your ears. We will be the communicators so that you don't have to have any contact with candidates. We can do that for you. You don't have to make comments. We'll take care of the media. We'll work with all of those items so that you can be completely neutral and make that decision and make an objective decision when you get down to the end. So when I heard that in some of your discussions, I really applaud you for being willing to take that move, because then if a phone call comes to you from a candidate or somebody else, you can refer them to us and we'll take that off your plate. And our most successful searches have been with boards that have decided that that's what they want to do and let us do that for you. So that would be something that we would welcome. If you look at the, I don't know which bullet it is now, but our average number of candidates is generally 60. Just recently when we finished in Hillsborough County, we did have 51. I know when I've done some research just in Florida, the last 3 searches that we've followed that we have not done, they've averaged like 36. So we pride ourselves that we have a nice, large pool. And part of that goes too with, we will bring you from those average 60 or 50, we will look this between those 160 associates and between the team here, we will vet those candidates thoroughly. We'll do what we call reference checks for the references as well as the non-references, because nobody lists somebody that's going to say something negative about them. But that's one of our areas that we pride ourselves, that we really dig a little bit deeper to find out information, so that anything with their past employment, that we can find that so there are no surprises to you, and the candidates that we bring forward to you will really be who they say they are. With that, we do all of the extensive background checks, things that you think regularly, all of the litigation, all of your social media, any of those kinds of things that you would need to know that we could find from that as well. I think an important part to our process, once we bring forward candidates, and you certainly will help to, you will be the one selecting because this is your decision, we utilize what we call a consensus building matrix. And if selected, we'll even do a mock matrix for you to walk through to see. And it's a nice way, it's an objective way for you to build a starting point together. So after you interview candidates, you will be able to rank each of the candidates and compare them against each other and come back with an objective number. Numbers don't lie. They're not right or wrong. It just is what it is. And it gives you a nice starting point as a board to just have discussion about, gosh, this candidate came out to the top, this candidate came out second. But it's a huge part of our process that we utilize in Ray & Associates, and it is a consensus building matrix. And it's amazing the way the cream always rises to the top, and it is a nice way for board members to discuss to see, if there's other things that they want to consider with that as well. We will assist you. We gone through that, we'll assist you with tailoring the interview questions based on the information that we develop from the profile that's established as far as I'm created, and we have no two searches that are the same. So what you're looking for in a candidate in Sarasota, Florida right now is completely different than what somebody else might be looking for in another spot. And I know that an important part to you as a board right now is you are looking to establish trust. There's been some things that you've gone through that you feel like maybe employees or community has lost some trust with the school board. And we feel like some of those things are areas that we can help to rebuild that with this process. It's very open and transparent.
And with that being said, we provide a 2-year guarantee of placement of candidates. So if the candidate decides to leave before 2 years, or you decide to have that candidate leave, we will come back and we will do the search just for expenses only. In over 45 years of averaging about 50 searches a year, we've done that a handful of times. One was an unfortunate incident where a gentleman passed away. We went back and it was the right thing to do. The other one, Governor Huckabee, for example, handpicked somebody for his cabinet. Not our fault, but we went back and we did the right thing to do. So, so we do provide that 2-year guarantee.
I know an important part we left out.
Go ahead.
With your, another area that we've noticed when we watched your board meetings, we know that you're open for internal candidates as well as external candidates. And one of the things that we feel critical, any of your internal candidates, we will take through the exact same process as we do the external candidates. So when we bring finalists, when we start to whittle that down, let's say we end up with an internal candidate that rises to the top and is your #1 choice. You will have confidence in saying that internal candidate was vetted nationwide against everybody else with the same credentials, and they rose to the top compared to all of the other national candidates. So that's an important part for you to know so that we don't treat the internal candidates any differently.
And then after the hiring of the superintendent, what we'll do is a annual board self-assessment survey with you. And we used to charge for that, and now we're doing it as far as it's free for our first year, and it's free for every single year that the superintendent is staying here. So it is absolutely free.
If they choose.
Yep, if you choose to have us do that. It's a board self-assessment survey.
That's
Absolutely free, every single year. So
I agree.
Wrap up.
I think we've hit the main points, and I'm looking at our clock to be cognizant of time. So with that, we're really excited. We think there are a lot of positive opportunities for Sarasota right now. And I've had at least 2 people that have even heard that we are presenting tonight. They said, please let us know if you're selected, because we're already interested in Sarasota, and we haven't set profiles or anything. But so I think you're going to have a lot of interest here, because this is a very successful district, and so I think we're excited to work with you and help building that new chapter and building that trust back with your community.
And we're super excited to go ahead and possibly, like I said in the beginning, to go to the National Superintendent's Conference in San Diego and actually start recruiting for you from there. At that point, because there will be hundreds and hundreds of superintendents around there that will actually come to our resume review, and we'll be able to talk with them as well. Also, a couple other organizations that we affiliate ourselves with that will be there are NAPSE. Do you know what NAPSE is? It's the National Alliance of Black School Educators. And so we affiliate ourselves with them, as well as ALICE, which is the Latino Administrators. And so 3 of the 4 founding members of ALICE work for us. And so we're very, very proud of that as well. So please.
With that, we'll open it up to your questions.
Questions?
Mr. Robinson?
So I'm gonna ask you same question I asked your predecessor.
Sure.
So I'm trying to get a feel of you've talked about the recruitment nationwide. So I'm just want to get a feel of what quality of candidates we can expect to get from you. So what would you expect the minimum qualifications of the type of candidates you would be able to attract here?
Well,
I'm trying to look for. So, for example, would it be the associate superintendent #2 level? Would it be an executive director? Would it be down to the principal or teacher? What level of minimum qualifications, without getting into years and education, just because it goes without saying if someone's at that level,
sure,
what that would be.
And a lot of that's going to depend on what you as board members, when we talk to you one-on-one individually, tell us that you're looking for experience.
Yeah, that's what we want, but I'm asking you,
right,
what kind of people can you attract?
Sure. And I would tell you, with the district, 43,000 plus students in Sarasota, you're going to have sitting superintendents apply. You absolutely will. You will have maybe number 2 in charge. Different districts apply. You'll have some high caliber people with experience that will step forward.
But if you were going to recommend to us what our minimum qualification would be, what would that be? Minimum level, executive director, for your teacher, principal, executive director, deputy superintendent, or superintendent. What would, of that range?
Right. See, I don't see a teacher or principal being able to step into this position if you're asking me that.
All right.
I'm looking at superintendent, senior cabinet level.
Okay.
What'd you say?
Okay, so
or school board member.
No.
Everybody's shaking their head no.
I'll go ahead and I'll tell you this. I've already had one individual reach out to me that said, if you get this job, we would be very, very interested in applying. That person is a sitting superintendent who is has been the National Superintendent of the Year across the country.
All right, so my next question is rather uncomfortable one, but you've talked about a lot of your national experience, and you talked about how you were involved in 14 local searches. It's uncomfortable because your competitor is the FSBA, who has a reputation to have extensive knowledge and experience in Florida, hence the F in the FSBA. So could you help me decide? Because when I'm weighing their experience in Florida searches and the knowledge and relationships they have in people, and they probably have people in all 67 counties. Would that be fair? The fact that they have members in all 67 counties and that network is a benefit, just being honest.
Sure.
So can you juxtapose that with your firm and how I should weigh, what I should weigh when I'm looking? What should I from your firm should be weighted against that to tilt the scales into your favor? Was I clear in that question?
Sure. And certainly, Florida school boards, they focus on Florida.
Right.
And I've got 35 years experience in Florida and all of my contacts throughout Florida and our associates that we also have. So we feel very connected with Florida. We understand Florida. We understand the sunshine. I think the thing that we offer is both our comfort level and our knowledge in Florida as well as outside of Florida, so that we could bring strengths with people that we feel would fit well within the areas like Sunshine Law and things like that Florida is unique to. So I think you're in a win-win. I don't think you can make a bad decision. Because you can make a bad decision?
Well, the point is, we understand Florida. We get Florida. We get the Sunshine Law, like Sandy was saying, but we can also provide a national search for you as well. And so we're going to get you the Florida candidates. The person that we placed in Hillsborough was from Florida. And so we can get you the Florida candidates. I'm not worried about that. But we're also going to get you the best candidate, period, whether that person is in Florida or whether that person is in Texas or Wisconsin or Iowa.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Ziegler?
Thank you. Stemming off of what Mr. Robinson said, there's certainly FSBA, and specifically we have many of the board has knowledge and have worked with those individuals, and that's a good thing. But also there's benefits to having some outside. So I see that kind of balancing on both sides. One thing, and I was looking, I don't know if Carol is in here. Is Carol? On the table of contents, and I didn't see this on the other one, but I'm going to ask you to answer. You have provide a list of contracts that have been terminated or unsuccessful in the past 5 years, and you have you had any?
To my knowledge, we have 0.
I think it's page 6 now. That's why I thought it was 6. I was like, wow, that's a lot. Okay, so that never mind. And then I got worried that you said you had 6 that were sorry.
0.
Sorry. Table of contents. It's been a really long day.
I love it.
Sorry, because I got really worried about that. Okay, so never mind. The other part was that, again, I think that while I certainly believe the board should have that final decision, when you invest in a consultant, essentially, it's bringing forward your perspectives, what you're seeing across the country, best practices, things to stay away from, things that are working. That doesn't mean
we go down that road, but that education, that experience. And so one of the other discussions was once a candidate is found, I mean, there's a number of things along the way, and I think it's really important that that be brought forward, and there's a balance, but I think that having that discussion publicly, not just one-on-one, is important for us to build consensus and see that benefit and the negative and positive of them versus working in silos. And so whoever I mean, that's a big part that I would hope that you do. Can you speak to some examples of that? It's Florida because we have the sunshine, so that would be any direction, I mean, Hillsborough, et cetera. I mean, if there are certain things that the board was discussing and you have seen where that could be maybe not a best practice, have you brought the kind of advice forward, or?
Do you mean as far as something that the board was doing that was not
anything by way of the search, by way of the candidate profile, by way of the minimum requirements, by way of contract language? I mean, I could think of a number of things, but.
So you're thinking of some experiences we can think of that the board was engaged in, like some things were not best practices.
I think navigating, right. I don't want to go through this process and must make any bad one. Sure. We want to have a successful outcome.
Right.
And so, but while you would work for us, I also would hope whoever's working for us would be empowered to bring forward some areas to, avoid if that was something that was brought forward.
And I'm trying to think of some specifics. Probably the one thing I can tell you is you will identify probably either your board chair or whoever you say is maybe the main spokesperson, that when you're having some discussions, if we're not either physically here, we'll probably be watching your board meetings, but if there's some things that you say, we want to talk about this, or we might pick up the phone and call you, we'll be available. So some of the things, I'm trying to even think of something specific that we can head off at the pass.
I mean, maybe there hasn't, but I mean, my goal would be that they're just that be brought forward. If there, for example, Mrs. Brown had brought forward in our past experience a prior search, and I share this concern, is at the final decision that there be kind of a discussion as a board, so you build consensus instead of each person saying who they want, and then so those are the examples that we want to be aware of those before we're in it. Mm-hmm. So that's what I believe the whole purpose, part of the purpose you're investing in paying a recruitment firm to provide that guidance.
And that's a good point, because as I've watched other searches in other spots, both Florida and outside of Florida, when I've watched some of the boards get to the end when they're some discussion, and it kind of gets uncomfortable for the board, because it's like,
you don't want to say something bad about them. I mean,
and that's the nice thing about our consensus matrix that we use, because part of that is each individual board member gets to record their own personal opinion. We take that information, we collect the numbers, and then we'll come right back up with a chart for you to see the numbers and like I said, the numbers aren't right or wrong, but it's exactly what it is, and then it's a perfect starting point. So nobody has to be uncomfortable and say, well, I really liked what so-and-so said, or I really like, you're gonna be able to see the numbers, and it's a starting point to say, gosh, this person came at the top, and this is what I liked, or different conversation. So it's a really nice way, and you look extremely professional when I've seen as when it's been utilized. The board, it really is a very smooth way, and that's why we call it a consensus builder. And then it's just a great starting point for you to talk. At that point.
That's okay.
That's a good point.
And one final question was, you had referenced that instead of, well, there will be certain elements you'll have to defer to staff to help support in certain areas. Can you speak to that? I mean, to what depth that is and how much you would take on?
Sure. And having been a former chief of human resources in Palm Beach County, we'll work closely with somebody in HR, somebody in public information, because depending on what the board's wishes are as far as the stakeholder groups, things like that, they will help to set up those meetings and find locations, different geographic locations throughout your county, whatever's the most convenient for your constituents. We'll work with public information people as far as any media requests. We'll be happy to field all of those and help, but it's always nice we establish a nice relationship with those people so that we can work with them. But the bulk of that will come on us and our office.
Okay. Correct. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Mrs. Goodwin.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being here tonight. And I was looking at your estimated cost sheet. And so the $100 consultant fee per hour would be something above and beyond what you think is here. The $5,000 advertising, is that on top of the 37 or that included in? And if anything above the 5,000 would be an additional fee?
Yeah. Yeah, so the board approved advertising. You can see that at the very bottom. It's estimated advertising. It's separate.
Okay, so that's separate. So that would be something else that we would include. You say, how many times would you come here? You live in Rock Hill?
Rock Hill now,
Which is a lovely place, by the way.
Have you been there?
I have. I'm from Georgia originally,
Okay.
but I'm,
Right.
I love North Carolina and South Carolina. But I just I wondered how many times you think you would need to be here during our search.
So we definitely want to be here for the first meeting. That's a planning meeting. And so we would definitely be here for the first meeting. We would be here on the ground to go ahead and do your constituent meetings, meeting with your groups and learning what they want. And then the next meeting to present the results of what we heard. We can present a cost saving and do something such as Skype or Zoom. And we can present that information to you.
Or we can be here in person.
Or we
if
could
you
be here
prefer.
for you.
All
So-
your wishes.
And then the next time that we would be here is to present the candidates to you, the top 10 or 12 candidates. And then we would be here to immediately help facilitate the matrix, consensus building matrix, after the first and second round.
In other words, Florida's home to me, even though, so like we hop in the car and go back and forth, and it's not any issue at all to be here. If, like I said, the board can determine how much you'd like us to be here. We are at your beck and call, and cell phones you'll have 24/7 that you can reach us.
But Ryan lives in Iowa.
No,
Right.
St. Louis.
St. Louis, ma'am.
Oh, you live in St. Louis.
And he flits around more than I do.
That's close. Iowa's such a place for me today.
I don't want to tell you that I'm from Iowa originally. I wasn't going to say that today.
As well as I. But I will say this.
Our firm's in Iowa.
St. Louis is a quick flight on Southwest, cheap to be here. And listen, we don't stay at the Ritz-Carlton. We stay at the Hampton Inn. And so there are many nights that,
Not bad. I'm with you. But I was just curious about, what a one trip would cost, and if both of you would come, and how much we would be talking. I mean, we can rank up some, 58, 50, whatever cents a mile or whatever. You're not going to drive from North Carolina.
Our travel subtotal, if you look at that, is about $2,700.
Don't you think that's low?
No, especially flying Southwest. You can get sometimes flights pretty darn cheap.
Get you on Allegiant.
Oh, yeah, I have been on that a couple times.
I have been on Allegiant a lot.
But if we know there's a window that our travel agency works with that we can get some pretty cheap flights, if we know in advance that we can go ahead and book.
Well, I'm very familiar with Hillsborough County. One of my dear friends is a school board member there, and I was just with her in Washington, D.C. for the last few days. And I know that they hired Clay County's school board
Yes, ma'am.
superintendent, and I was with the Clay County school board member and the Hillsborough County school board member when they kind of approached each other with, "Oh, you just took my superintendent away," one of those. But do we hire Florida?
Do you hire Florida? Do you mean?
Should we hire a Florida person?
I think you hire the best person for the job, period. Whether that person is in Florida, whether that person is in the state of Maryland, I think you owe it to the students, to the community, and to the district itself to find the best candidate, period.
Well, I've just always thought the Florida experience was important because it is different, because of sunshine laws, because of the amount of statutes that we have and so forth. I mean, somebody really has a learning curve if they don't have any Florida experience. So I was just, based on your assessment, and you're working all over the country and working here in Florida as well, if you thought that was an important piece for us. I've always thought it was important.
Well, and Hillsborough is a perfect example, kind of like internal candidates versus external, Florida versus other out-of-state.
Correct.
That Clay County superintendent rose to the top amongst Colorado, Tennessee, Utah, other finalists, and that Florida person did rise to the top. So, until we actually get your profile set as far as what's perfect for you, it may or may not be.
I just was,
and we could
just
have-
in your experience, is that something we need? And then my last section is about the community. Now, do you like a lot of community involvement, yes or no?
Yes.
You do?
Absolutely.
And how would you define community involvement for us as we attempt this search?
So, like I said, we were going to meet with as many groups as you want us to meet with, period. So whether that be students, like I was hoping earlier, community, community people, teachers, business officials, religious leaders. We want to meet with everybody that you want us to meet with. Plus, during that time and in advance of that, we're going to have the online survey that's available as well. So if somebody cannot come to one of those events, their voice can still be heard. Also, we have open forums. And so what we can do is have an open forum at the north part of the county one morning, and then at the end of the night, we can have an evening open forum at the south part of the county. I can go north, I can go south, she can go east, and she can go west. So we really think that those open forums are absolutely wonderful opportunities for people to come. We've had them where 5 people show up, and we've had them where thousands of people, show up. So, but we will meet with as many people as possible. It is absolutely essential, and we believe in meeting with all your community people.
Did many people show up in Hillsborough?
They did. They did. And a perfect example of the way that we'll tailor a search for you. When we originally started with Hillsborough, we had all of the community forums set up. We did not have solidified a meet and greet for like the semifinalists when we got down to the 3 final candidates. As we worked a little further into it, the board, as they were talking back and forth, said, we really think we'd like to just get some community input from our 3 semifinalists. So we added that in and brought that in before, the day before they did their final interviews. So those are some of the things that we'll work with you that are fluid and processes, and we had a nice turnout for that as well. But what we'll do then is when we get that community involvement, being your eyes and ears, we encourage you all not to attend, because then people will be more honest. And then we'll come back, but we'll give you collective themes and we'll report back to you with information so that you'll have that information to make an informed decision as well.
And remember that online survey that we have, we can do it in multiple foreign languages as well, if need be.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes, well, I went to the price page, and that I think they're probably pretty close to each other. You couldn't hear our discussion in the other room, could you?
No, ma'am.
Because I almost thought you did, because of that question that we had asked about, how do we get together so that we can build consensus before we get to the meeting, because it's so difficult to do that. I also see that you've got a couple people on your team. You said Joseph Burke from Rockledge, Florida, and Amy Canisi from Holmes Beach, or Indian Harbor Beach. It's the Key Associates, page 2.
Right here.
How would they be involved?
So I think what their involvement will be just community. Has somebody applied from Florida? Do you know that individual from Florida, et cetera?
And depending on the number of community forum meetings, sometimes we need extra people to come in. So if usually we like to do it over a 2 to 3 day period. And so if we need more additional people to assist us with that, and also all of our background checks and work that way.
Yeah, I see they also had educational experience. I was looking at I looked at all of the brochures you're handing out, and I looked at the Lake County one from 4 years ago. Well, I guess it's 3 years, November 2016. And the starting salary there was $195. We're a little bit over that now. But, when we raised that, there was some concern in the community. I think there's going to be a little sticker shock, because when you go out there,
You're right.
it's probably going to be a little more than what we're used to.
We'll bring to you some regional, Florida regional salaries, comps, and then some national comps so that you can make an informed decision before we set your salary, you set your salary range.
Yeah, I mean, because this
But you're
one
right on point.
seems the same 48 schools, 42,000 plus students, 5,000 teachers. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My only comment is that I believe you're really short on your travel and how much time you're going to spend here. And the reason is, if you're going to do all these community forums and then meet with students and then meet with staff, I think that, it's not that I have a problem with it, but I think it's going to be much more than what you're anticipating.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to put all that in. And north and south. So there has to be forums in North County and South County as well.
We did in Hillsborough, just finished very successfully.
Mrs. Ziegler.
As well, it's just us properly navigating it so that it doesn't exceed. And I think that we want to do it right, so we don't want to make that decision and then cap it, go on the cheap, right? But given that, Hillsborough is a big county. And you mentioned some of the level of community engagement. What was their travel amount?
It was similar.
I can't quote you the exact amount, but it was very similar, and we didn't have any problem. Stayed under that.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion? Any further discussion?
Now, or do we just vote later?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Enjoyed being here.
We'll be talking about it later.
Bang your gavel, no clapping.
Okay. Let me get back on target.
You had your mic on. I was joking.
Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Dr. Covert and Catherine Kokoza and Steve Canties to come up, and I think Dr. Covert is going to explain the changes. You have a new business item on your agenda regarding the student progression plans, which is different from what you saw at our last meeting. So I've asked him to just kind of come up and explain those changes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have folks coming up behind me.
He's got support.
Good morning. Good evening. I'm sorry, Ms. Sucker, board members, Ms. Corcoran, and Mr. Hardy. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening and give you an update on the amended proposal and the recommendations before you this evening that would begin with the class of 2025. The objective of the committee, and I'll keep my comments short because I want to be mindful of the time. The charge of the committee was to define a Pineview diploma and experience that we received from the board. And as I shared at the presentation on the January 21st meeting, that task was accomplished, and we want to make sure we thank all of the stakeholders and the members of that group. As I shared at that January 21st meeting, the purpose of the work of the committee and how this recommendation will benefit our students. This provides a firm grounding in defining what we do as a school, the students we serve, why we serve them, and how we do what we do. This preserves the integrity and identity of a gifted learning experience for past, present, and future Pineview students. This also ensures that everyone understands very clearly that gifted education is about gifted students being taught by gifted trained teachers in the presence of high expectations. And they publicly commit Pineview to gifted education of all students in the arts and sciences. As I shared after that meeting on January 21st, we mailed the letter home. We communicated with parents. We posted information on our website. And we also brought our vision setting committee back together. And it was at that meeting that the vision committee decided two things. They reaffirmed their commitment to recommending what's before you this evening. That's 17 of the 26 credits in the core academic areas and world language be earned from Pineview gifted trained teachers on our campus, and that they were also unanimous in that we wanted to pull back the recommendation regarding highly rigorous coursework for more study and discussion at the school site. And the rationale for that was we wanted to listen to our community. We listened to feedback from our board, and we considered that very carefully. So that information will be reviewed and discussed on an ongoing basis through our shared decision-making team at our school, and potentially may be brought back in the future. But we need to have more opportunity for our constituents, for our parents, our students, and faculty to give us input. So those are the pieces that I wanted to share with you tonight, and that's what's before you.
Mrs. Brown?
Listening, and even though you had a vote that you could go forward, you decided that we needed to listen some more, and I think I agree with you. I mean, I was comfortable going forward because I personally know some of those students over there, and I think give them something to shoot for, they'll make it. And I wanted to know in 2 years, come back to me and tell me how many of these kids are going to be on, and if we've got some kids in trouble, we'll back out that requirement. I think we're probably better off now saying, okay, in 2 years, let's look at it. Let's see how many of those kids, if we're kind of thinking about it, and if we kind of work our way with their guidance counselors so that they will all meet that, and then come back and tell us, is this what we need? Because like I said, like some of the other ones list those classes, we're much more flexible in the classes that they can take. And I think to have peace in the valley, I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Goodwin?
Well, I liked it as you had changed it, so we know that. I thought that was a great baseline, and I think Pineview should be held up higher, and it is a gifted school, and so I thought we had done a lot of work, and I know your staff had, and you had, and Mr. Cantis had, and I thank you all for all your hard work. But I understand that you've got to step it back a bit. I hope that we don't have a lot of students getting an AA degree while at Pineview. That is the one thing that I think is not the best thing for Pineview. And that's really where I kind of started looking at this, if you remember, was several years ago when we had that at the forefront, and we started looking at what courses were students taking at State College, particularly. And I think we've got great dual enrollment, and now the state's going to give us more money and do more for us with dual enrollment. So dual enrollment's really important, and I think that from what I see in the legislature, they may be moving things down to pre-K and looking at 11th and 12th grade as, oh, let's go for something different. Maybe, a community college type thing would be good for them. But, wonders never cease to amaze me with the legislature. But I think that putting more of the money down in the early grades is a good thing. I'm really for pre-K classes. And so I think we'll have many, many opportunities, is my point. And we have a lot of choice in our school district, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But I just wanted to say, I liked it before. I'm okay with this. I'll support it. But I want to thank you all for the hard work that you did and the committee did and the stakeholders, the former teachers and students did in putting that effort together for 18 months, because it's so noted.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Ziegler?
Thank you. I too, well, I'm glad you have some backup today now from last time.
I can for an hour again.
Fine. No, I know we've had extensive conversations, all of you. I will certainly, it would be remiss if I didn't. Mr. Cantis and I have had years of this conversation beginning back in 2015. And so a couple things. I recognize the work of the committee, 18 months being substantial, and I don't want that to be just cast aside. I am very forthcoming with my thoughts. I have been always. And so, yeah, at the last meeting, as I mentioned, I felt that there were two concerns. There was first the 8 rigorous coursework, and then there's the 17 out of 26, and that were mushed together. I don't need to relive history, so now that the 8 rigorous coursework is put aside, and I do want to go back to ask about what that plan may be, if that's something that's going to be revisited or what have you. But I go back to the 17 out of 26, which is where it all began back in 2015. And so I still stand in the same place I did, and the reason, but I have pushed really, really hard to say, give me a reason that I'm not catching, I'm missing something, or what have you, because I think what I had felt was oftentimes indicated is there's a statement referred to as the integrity of Pineview and the Pineview diploma, and that means something. And as I said, from the 8 rigorous coursework and the potential risk of the exclusion of those gifted students that may not be, that already hit that benchmark from the entry standpoint, but wouldn't be at that high acceleration level. I was worried about where would they go, because Pineview does in fact have a tremendously unique environment to serve our students, so much that people come and move here for that. And I believe in that, and I think this community unanimously supports that. And so now having to, and I've been challenged because I want to take compromise seriously. I don't want to be seen as somebody who just digs my heels in, but at the end of the day, I have to believe in what we are voting on. And so with that, I appreciate all of the data that has been sent to me, which is a lot, and I have spent a lot of time going through it. But the one piece that I found to be the most tremendous to me, especially in this journey of 5.5 years of this discussion, was what I felt the problem often said was that why would a student go to Pineview if they're off campus full time? They wouldn't be benefiting from that Pineview experience and being taught by a gifted endorsed teacher. And I understand that. But when I asked how many students do we have right now that are full-time dual enrollment off campus, the number was 16. 17 and then 16, right? So, and tell me if I'm wrong. And so as I pushed a little and asked a little bit more, of that, how many are, and I didn't want to push back, I don't want to keep asking for more and more data, because I understand there are other jobs that staff has to do. So I am trying to be sensitive to that. But I wanted to see what that story told me. And in the conversation with Mr. Cantis and I, that of those, and I don't have a direct, and if you have it, please let me know, but of those, predominantly majority or supermajority of those 16 students are in fact seniors, yes?
There are 5 seniors and 11 juniors.
Okay, and of the five seniors and 11 juniors, and then I had said, okay, of those, how long have those students been at Pineview? And the reason that's important is I would agree, and I would understand why within our student progression plan, we can codify in rules to avoid whatever concern we were having of I'm going to use the word exploiting. You want to have a Pineview diploma, but you're not getting the experience. But when I ask how long these students have been there, many of which had started, whether it be in 2nd grade or 6th grade, do we know what their history is?
I don't have those broken out, but I can tell you, Ms. Ziegler, that in looking at the students, sort of to piggyback off Ms. Goodwin's comment about the AA degree, I only have the ability to point to one student who will have already, that we know, will have earned their AA degree and the high school diploma at the same time. And I'm not sure if that was where your question was headed, but as long as we know early enough when that student joins us that that's their goal, it absolutely is possible to both take 17 of these credits as we've defined them, as well as taking dual enrollment courses, which could potentially satisfy that requirement as well. But there are lots of variables. When the student joins us, what their interests are. I happen to know that student has taken courses during the summer and has made choices about self-acceleration, which we support. So there are many, many layers and variables, but that is still possible in this recommendation. And Is that where the question was headed?
Yes, and I think, again, and just for the context of people listening to the conversation, because there has been a lot of discussion within staff to better understand this. What is the problem we're trying to solve? How do we best accommodate our students with substantial opportunities, which I think we have, but also understanding that there's a unique, the gifted component to this. And also being realistic to, as I use the term, operations management. I mean, I want to be realistic to staff and being able to design a plan or a master plan, and as Pineview caters to, you build your master plan almost in reverse. And so with that, there may be times where that limitation does exist. And so I believe that I do not believe changing the 17 out of 26, based on the data now that I've seen. I don't see that trend that there is that abuse off campus, if you will. I believe the story tells more of such as that these have been longtime Pineview students who have been taught by gifted endorsed teachers, who have been long-standing Pineview, part of the Pineview community, and subsequently are on a trajectory to both benefit from that environment and have to be able to obtain an AA. And I think that is certainly the legislature's intent. I don't think it undermines the integrity of it. So I still, and I appreciate all the work, but I go back to, I didn't even have the data necessarily to substantiate it. It was more in a philosophy back in 2015. But now that I have the data to substantiate that, the problem, I don't see it as being that. It just tells a different story. And so I genuinely appreciate everyone's feedback and the public's feedback. I think that as this continues, that there's a lot to be learned. And from a communication standpoint, I think that the robocall, that was a great response. I have heard a lot of appreciation from the community since then. So, but and I don't want it to be lost on any of you that I do support. I do appreciate it, but I am going to stay where I have been for 5+ years now, and I don't know that limitation needs to exist. So. That's where I stand.
Mr. Robinson.
I appreciate you guys going back and meeting again with the committee. My question is, once you met with the committee and you made this change, I understand and respect the change that you made. Did you then have a public meeting with the parents?
We took that information, Mr. Robertson, and we shared that out via email, posted it on our website, robo phone call, and
those are one-way.
Blasted it.
Those are one-way communications. Did you have so I take it you did not have a public meeting forum to get input? I mean, I'm happy that you went to the Vision Committee, but did you have a listening session where instead of you pushing information out, you were taking information in?
That was held on January 28th.
I mean, after
today's only February.
Yeah, I'm talking about after your.
So not yet.
Okay, that's what I want. All right, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Brown.
Perhaps for the benefit of our newer board members, we all know that Pineview was set up as a magnet program. Those of us who have been in the community for a long time, Pineview was a school for academically gifted students. And I guess there was starting to be some confusion on what kind of giftedness are we here for and all of that. And what makes it special is that we have, you can't just put any teacher in a class and here's the same coursework that someone's getting over there, because it's basically the same coursework, but what makes it different is not only having the gifted endorsed teacher, because it's not just any teacher, but having a gifted endorsed teacher, but the other component of that is having a classroom full of gifted students. The kind of discussion that you will have definitely goes beyond just what the teacher is teaching you, because the students are an active part of that. And that's what we need to keep and to focus on. And when a student starts out in second grade at Pineview, doesn't mean that they're going to be able to continue to hold on, because maybe they were ahead of themselves back then, but they don't like the hours of homework, or they have other things that they want to pursue, and it doesn't all work. Like you said, it's still possible if they want to put themselves through all that to get that AA degree, but the most important thing we want students at Pineview to do is to get a Pineview diploma. And, you know, something else that was brought up was mental stress that these kids have to deal with. And I read the article that someone gave to us at the last meeting, and the stress that these kids seemed to be under was more the parents pushing for them to, you know, get into a better school, and the parents wanting them to, you know, have the prestigious behind them, or it was also from athletic coaches pushing these kids beyond where they wanted to go, where the stress was coming from. It didn't say the stress was coming from the teachers. It said the staff seemed to be coming from either the kids themselves wanting to push beyond or trying to fulfill something for the parents. So, but that's what we're trying to do here, is to reaffirm to the community what Pineview is. And Pineview is a magnet school. It always has been. We haven't changed anything. It's a magnet school for academically gifted students. So we all know that, and I hope we all know that and understand that. And like I said, I appreciate you coming forward. And I mean, I thought what you did was to get a consensus for your school. And I would hope that we could get a consensus on this on the board too. I mean, because that's what, you know, compromise is. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to keep you long. I've been a proponent of Pineview since the beginning, even when there was rising comments from community members to put the gifted students back in the regular schools so the regular schools would show higher grades. I mean, that's how ludicrous it was at one point. But you've done a great job with Pineview. And to me, you're the educator. I'm not. I can look at what you've done, and if it makes sense, it makes sense. I don't need to drill down into all of your data because you're the expert at your school. You and your teachers are the experts. So I was very happy with what you did before, and I understand now why you've done this, but I hope that you do come back and ask for those rigorous courses, because I think that's what makes Pineview Pineview. And if you can't hack it, then you don't belong there. I've had 2 grandsons that were raised here in Sarasota. One didn't like it in Pineview, and he left. I don't hold anything against Pineview for that. It was his choice. I'm just thankful that it's there for those children who need it. And I'm thankful that you're there as the principal, because you've had a heck of a lot thrown at you this last year. I also don't believe, as a board, we should individually be going to principals and asking for data. I think it has to come through the board if we ask for data, and the superintendent has to know exactly what it is we're asking for, and I don't see that happening. I see the principals being inundated for reports, more reports and reports, and it's really not the role of the board to do that, unless, as a whole, we do it. So I don't know how I can stop it, but I know what you guys are going through, all of you principals. I know how tedious it can be and how much is demanded of you, and I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just pick up the phone and call you and talk to you, and I understand exactly what it is you're doing. So thank you very much.
We love our kids. We are absolutely passionate about making sure that their needs are met. We had 2 faculty meetings today and celebrated our people support staff, our school social workers, and our counselors. And some of the comments I made, I thank them for their passion. All of the faculty members that they bring each and every day to Pineview to meet the needs of our students and to only lift them up and set them on their individual paths to greatness. They are the most amazing students, and it's an honor and privilege to serve there.
I know you feel that way. I've been on your campus with you. So I thank you very much for staying there and for continuing to push and for not running away because I know it's been rather brutal this last year. So thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Could I make a quick comment? I would just, first of all, like to thank the board for your consideration, all the conversation, appreciate it. I think it's really important that everybody understands, the purpose of what was going on. I also want to thank the committee. They spent a lot of time on this over the last 18 months. I had a charge from the school board. Yeah. And I think they did a nice job. If you go back to the mission statement and all the work past that, defining that diploma, they did really good work. The students, parents, the community members, the feedback that was received from a number of different avenues. I also recognize, you think about those conversations led to a lot of change and from where they started to where they ended. So I want to commend the committee. I think it's important that you all have done so also. I thank you for that. And I want to recognize that. I think one of the pieces I think it's important to remember, as we, as a school board has provided opportunity for our students in Sarasota County to attend one of the top 15 schools in the U.S., the school board has supported that financially, but also philosophically over the years. As we work past this and to the next 50 years at Pineview, it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be an amazing place for all of our gifted students. So I want to thank all of you all for your time put on. I do the last piece of the data that I think is really important is, I think the group was able to accommodate just about every request. What was the concern? They went back and studied it, and they found a way to accommodate that so they could be all inclusive. Also, in the spirit of compromise, when they took the 8 rigorous courses, I have no doubt. My daughter went to that school from 2nd grade all the way through 12th. When she was there was no opportunity to take virtual classes. There was no opportunity to take courses off campus. And so I know what that environment, how important it is and what it means. I think that, one of the pieces I think people need to understand in the public is, there's over 450 online courses taken at Pineview also, not just the dual enrollment classes. It's also the online. So when this conversation started, it was the number of courses that potentially could be taken away from that environment. Many times those students were sitting in the media center taking those virtual classes. So if you take the HOPE classes out, to be fair, it's probably over 300 a year. They continue to work to find ways to accommodate all the students in a number of different ways. So number one, let's recognize the work they did. You all did that. I appreciate that. The support that you provide Pineview and all of our schools. This conversation is an important conversation. Thank you for taking that and thinking about it seriously. I want to thank the committee for taking the community feedback and getting to where they wanted to be. So I just felt like it was important to recognize the committee and all the pieces of that. Okay?
You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Canties. Is that all? We're going to do the hearing of the citizens now. Sorry it's taken so long and you've been so patient sitting there. David Graham?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. I'm David Graham. I just wanted to say what a difference since September. What a pleasure today's board meeting has been. Seeing the students at the beginning of the meeting acknowledging our wonderful Sarasota County School Police Force and the wonderful awards that those 2 officers have done. As a licensed Florida State security officer, I am so proud of our police department, and we are so fortunate to have our own county schools officers that's mission is to protect the employees and, of course, our students and have that immediate need met if we ever needed it. The reason I was up here today is that over the last 6 months or so, a major topic of conversation has been the previous superintendent and all of the related business. Today I'm here to acknowledge and approve of the settlement that is on the table from the board. I am so encouraged by what I've seen with all of you moving business forward the last couple months, whether it's the union agreement, whether it's finishing up this last year's business, and looking and seeing you guys working together versus in the past months. It's eye-opening, it's refreshing, and it's been a pleasure. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of you guys and say I'm very impressed on the great job you've done trying to move business forward, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the increase focus this year as we're going into the next school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ella Merman.
Good evening, Ms. Corcoran, Ms. Zucker, Ms. Brown, Ms. Goodwin, Ms. Ziegler, and Mr. Robinson. My name is Ella Merman. I am a junior at Booker High School and the founder of Sarasota Students for Climate, a youth-led organization fighting to improve local environmental policies. We are most known for initiating the climate strikes in Sarasota. Our mission today is to garner support for the next global climate strike, which will take place on April 24th. I'd like to begin by reminding everyone just how dire a crisis we are living in. While I can state countless instances of climate disasters on a global and domestic level, I want to focus on the impacts of climate change that are occurring in our own backyard. In Sarasota, we only have 20 years left until we run out of space to put our trash. Air pollution is becoming worse as we speak, and Sarasota's coasts are flooding on a regular basis, not to mention the increased frequency and severity of hurricanes and the record high temperatures we've experienced just in the last year. In August of 2018, Greta Thunberg said enough is enough, and in the past year, over 7 million youth have followed her from countries all around the world. In March of 2019, Sarasota Students for Climate brought the school strike movement to Sarasota County, and on September 20th, we were joined by over 700 participants and made the front page of the Sarasota and Bradenton Herald Tribune. While many people have been fighting for climate justice for years, the youth movement has been key to mobilizing climate action. For the next few minutes, I am asking that you put yourselves in our shoes, the youth, and consider the anxiety that plagues us when we think about our future. We all experience eco-anxiety in different ways. Personally, when I wake up in the morning, I wonder how many more days until I have to wear an air mask just to leave my house. I'm constantly taking in the beauty around me and hoping that my kids will be able to experience the same natural wonders of our world. A week ago, we released a petition to show support for our cause from those who cannot be here. As of right now, we have 235 signatures. For those who have not had a chance to read the demands of our petition, we are requesting the Sarasota County School Board to, 1, refrain from any disciplinary action against students who participate in legitimate climate strike activities during Earth Day week, April 20th to April 24th. 2, designate April 24th as a no-test day to reinforce a stance of supporting such action. 3, allow students to share information about the climate strikes in school as appropriate. And 4, meet respectively with students when requested during this week of action and beyond to address the climate crisis in Sarasota County.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I should have read your rules, I guess. The rules are no clapping. Please do not. You can do this, so I can't snap my fingers anymore, but that's what they do. It just disrupts the flow of the meeting, so please refrain from clapping. Quinn Gulliver.
Hello, I'm Quinn Gulliver, and I'm an 8th grade student here in Sarasota County, and I'm part of Sarasota Students for Climate. And As a student, I know a free day off from school is something a lot of us kind of really like. We dream about it sometimes. And also, I know that I would consider and possibly use the opportunity of signing up for this strike as a pretext just to get an off day at home. Now, as fun as this might sound to us, our event is not a get out of school free card. To obtain the excused absence for this strike, a student would have to take a photograph of themselves at the event or write a paragraph stating what they learned at this rally. Also, as is policy of our school district, a parent or guardian would have to sign off on their student missing the school day. Now, to ensure that all participating students are actually going to the rally might seem like an impossible task, as the Sarasota County School District serves about 43,000 students. But cities much bigger than our own have implemented effective systems. Portland, Oregon, New York City, Arlington, Texas, and even our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., have set measures in place to give climate-concerned citizens excused absences to exercise their First Amendment rights. Please consider allowing all of us Sarasota County students the opportunity to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Alma, or Alma. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not sure.
Hello, my name is Alma Dosberg, and I'm a freshman at Booker High, and I'm part of Sarasota Students for Climate. I would like to stress the importance of this strike and the need for excused absences. The strike on April 24th is not only of global importance to students who are fighting for the future, it should also be valued within Sarasota and by our school board. The strike itself represents the strength of students across borders and the power that our generation holds. By recognizing this, you are acknowledging the morals that are embedded in education, an education that stands to teach students the force and relevance of their voices. The ideas of this movement in no way contravene academic ideas, which have always been the wellsprings of positive change. You may be asking, why is supporting this particular strike and allowing excused absences for those who wish to attend so important? Providing excused absences to students will not only convey the school board's belief in our future, it will also cultivate youth investment in the environment and the issues that will most impact our lives. On April 24th, when we join our peers across the globe to rally for attention to the urgency of climate issues, we will also embody our understanding of civic duty. This day offers a great opportunity to merge our education in science, civics, economics, and history, with a movement that calls for more active partnership with the government. This day will represent our hopes for our quickly diminishing planet, our cry for help from and solidarity with those in power. We are asking the school board to back up the students of Sarasota and show that you too believe in the future we are fighting for. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Devin Gulliver.
Good evening, board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Devin Gulliver. I'm an 8th grader here in Sarasota County Schools. When I was in 6th grade, Hurricane Irma struck Sarasota. It was a massive hurricane, and it grew as strong as it did with the help of climate change. School was out for a week because of the storm, but no extra makeup days were scheduled for school. This is because you, Sarasota County, you've made the school day and school year slightly longer to go above and beyond the school hours, the amount per year that are mandated by the state, so we weren't missing out on actual school hours. Hurricane Irma closed school for a week. We only ask for one day, and that is April 24th. And unlike Irma, this can be an educational opportunity. Our schools emphasize STEM, and many people say students need to know more about civics and government. Students can learn the science behind the changing climate and the civic process of petitioning the government and passing environmental policy. Thank you for considering what I have to say.
Thank you. Eden Glickman.
Hi, hope you're having a good evening.
My name is Eden Glickman. I'm a sophomore at Pineview School, and I want to start a sexual health club at my school. So I work this year for Planned Parenthood as a peer sex educator. I teach a values-neutral education using Planned Parenthood resources, so you get all the good stuff without any of the controversy. While doing this, I've realized that people do not know a lot about health, sex, and gender and sexual identity. I've gotten a lot of questions that seem so obvious to me, like, what's the difference between being gay and transgender, and how do you use a condom? And then I realized, of course we don't know this. We haven't gotten sex ed since 5th grade. And even that sex ed only talked about puberty, nothing about healthy relationships, abuse, LGBT issues. So I applied for this club at my school with my assistant principal, Miss Spielman, and although I had her personal support, she rejected it on the grounds that the county would not approve of it. So I'm going to the county, and I really want this to happen. So the club would meet from 1 to 2 on Tuesdays. I have a teacher who is allowing me to use her classroom at this time. It will be a very collaborative and inclusive club where students can talk with each other about sex, gender, pretty much everything that we don't have an outlet to anywhere else. I can use my Planned Parenthood resources, provide, again, a values-neutral education, never mentioning Planned Parenthood, as I know they're banned on my campus. And I feel this is something that we really need and that I'm the right person to make it happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Susan Majors.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Susan Majors, and I'm here once again, to talk to you about the student that we are representing, DJ. And I know that we feel like that this has been going on and on and on. And again, just to update you, we were in court again in the end of January. We are waiting transcripts and getting ready to send a final order because we couldn't come together to work together to write an appropriate IEP even after it was court ordered. So imagine my surprise today when I got a phone call from the private school that the district had reached out without parental consent to set up services for speech and language and tutoring, which we're thrilled. We would love to have speech and language and tutoring. However, we would have expected that the parent would have been consulted or counsel would have been consulted, and that it wouldn't just, I don't know what the impetus for this was. I do know that at the last board meeting, when you voted to appeal our decision, you stated that this would be a continuation of services that you would continue to pay for. And I just want to make it perfectly clear that to date, other than McKay Scholarship, since January 23rd of 2019, when the student went to private school, he's received nothing from this district. Nothing. And I don't know what prompted the reach out today. We are hopeful to hear from you. We certainly would like to get a free, appropriate public education for the student who wasn't educated for 6.5 years. But it isn't helpful to building relationships when it's done through the back door as a surprise. So I just thought that the board needed to hear, at least from our perspective, that this is concerning. Thank you for your time this evening, and I really hope that we can get on the same page and get the student taken care of. That's our goal. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lee Merman.
Good evening, school board members. Thank you for staying up this evening. I'm a parent of 2 students in the Sarasota school system. Students today are asking for our support. They need to know that we as adults, administrators, teachers, and parents support them. Back as a student in 4th grade here in Sarasota County, we learned the word political efficacy. And for us as fourth graders, it meant volunteering, becoming more active in our community, supporting the ideas and things that were important to us. It's still a hard word to pronounce, but as a parent, there is nothing greater than the satisfaction we get at seeing our children find their voice. According to our Congressman, Vern Buchanan, he sent out a survey, and the number 2 issue of all the issues facing our country, our community here in Sarasota believes that our community and our Congress should address climate change. Teachers each day prepare about a 45 to 50-minute lesson to keep students' attention while in class. Yet those teachers and instructors want that learning to continue well beyond their time in the classroom. While schools have 4 walls, for today's students, their classroom are their peers, social media, our community, parents, grandparents, role models, elected officials, and so on and so on. Some of our best ideas and solutions are coming from today's young minds. To show that Sarasota County Schools truly supports and advocates for the current well-being and the future success of our students, I ask you to approve excused absences and no testing for when students exit the fabricated classroom and step out into the real world. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the hearing of citizens.
Can I speak to the kids before they have to go? Just thinking.
Sure.
I'm going to go out of order here. Normally, we don't comment on what is said here, but you're students, and I don't want to keep you up to the rest of our meeting. I see some of myself in you. I was active and involved. I don't remember what my issues were back then. But I do know that when you get involved, things change. Because I know when I was in my 20s and 30s, when I went outside on a day that had ozone warnings or the pollution was out, I ended up in the hospital because I couldn't breathe. The pollution was so bad out in LA and in areas in California, you couldn't see. So we can make changes. I appreciate you coming here. And I almost laughed. I may have laughed. Some of your ideas were very convincing. I think you really stepped out of your boundaries. You brought up some solutions, and I really appreciate that. And Eden, I want to apologize to you. You sent me an email. I'm glad you came here and shared. And board members, she sent me an email explaining why this was appropriate, and I mailed it to board.topmembers, I think. I don't think you all got it. But if you didn't, I will resend it to you now, and so that we could consider what she was saying, and she gave us some good arguments then, too. And again, thank you for being part of it and telling us what you feel. It's so refreshing to hear from students. Thank you.
Excuse me? I'm not allowed to speak?
No. Sorry. We do it by the cards, and once the cards are read, then the workshop is.
She had a card. What was the name, huh?
Hearing of citizens is closed.
She had a card, she said.
Oh,
what was the name on the card?
Mariah White. It was with all the other students talking about SS4C and climate change.
Did you talk?
I did not.
Oh.
You not called my name.
Hold on.
Yeah, in that case, you can talk. You can raise your hand. And
No, I want to find out what I did. Margie White?
Mariah White.
Mariah White,
Yeah.
sorry. Come on up, please.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry. Seem to do one of these every meeting.
Okay. So I'm up here today like my peers because if I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity. Albert Einstein. My name is Mariah White. I'm a junior at Pineview in the ADE program, and I'm a member of the youth-led organization Sarasota Students for Climate. We are all here today to be part of a solution, not part of the problem. As Americans, we have a fundamental right, which our First Amendment grants, that is the right to protest. This is our freedom, and is ever more important concerning
today's global narrative in the humanities' involvement in the climate crisis. We ask you to support the worldwide movement of youth standing up, as we are today in demanding the right to protest for our future. Previous generations have dismissed the climate crisis by ignoring solutions in the past. It has been overwhelming for my generation. Where do we even begin to address what is needed to take action and fundamentally change and address this climate crisis? A solution. We must change our course. In support of this change, with responsibility placed on students' civic duty, counties across the United States and Florida have allotted excused absences for the sake of protest for students. Counties that have already granted the right have been Portland, Oregon, New York City, and Martin County, Florida. Change is coming from our younger generation. The willingness to band together and transform how the climate crisis is perceived can allow youth to progress further in being leaders of global change. Youth involvement has become necessary to draw attention to the gravity of the climate crisis. We must continue to advocate. All of our futures depend on it. Join us in the solution of civil protest as we, the youth, will continue the legacy and belief that this nation was founded on, the right of the people to peaceably to assemble. Be supporters towards a truly sustainable future that will be led by our collective voices. The action and next step towards the solution is partnering with students in your community. I ask if you believe in the importance of maintaining a future with our beautiful land, heritage, and intercoastal shores, and homes with our tropical peninsula. Allow students and support your students' decision to act on their rights. Allow them to seize control of the future for a greater course, not just for each individual, but for all of us. You before me and in this room, and those in Sarasota, we ask you to give a path to continue our right to education without penalty for protest by ensuring there are no testing dates on April 24th and allowing excused absence for shared civil duty as young American citizens while being allowed to have open dialogue on the event. Together in Sarasota County and the school system can join many student groups across Florida and continue making a positive difference and change. I quote cultural anthropologist author Margaret Mead by saying, "Never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens that can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Be a part of your students' hope. Help us fight to protect our future with us." Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize again.
You're good. Thank you.
I'm sorry. You're all going to get in trouble. You're going to get a demerit today.
You're going to get the demerit.
Okay. Are there any additions or corrections to the consent agenda?
Yes. Item number 8, approval of the instructional classified personnel report. An addendum was added after the agenda was published. Item number 19 is to request the approval or the revision. Actually, it's the rescinding of.
That's on new business, though, not on consent.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why it's on here. I apologize. It was on my report. And then item 10, approval for the cancellation of the Department of Health contract. We want to pull that off and no longer include it as part of the consent. We're going to have some further discussions with the health department.
Good. Thank you.
Yes?
So you said item number 8 had an additional item added. On my screen, there's only one item, and that was the original one.
There's no addendum?
Oh, no, my item 8, there's only one. The one from January 27th.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't be an addendum then. Do you have I'm sorry, Kathy, do you have an addendum?
I thought one came in.
I got one.
Yeah.
But no, it just comes out sorry.
I have one.
On my screen, I have one.
There's one on the screen.
Huh? There's one on Art's screen, too.
Danielle, do you know if there are 2 board personnel reports or just one? Normally, there's an addendum that's done the Friday before the board meeting. Okay.
Well, we just have one on the agenda,
So there's no additions
To number 8?
to number 8.
Okay,
then.
thank you.
So we're just pulling number 10.
We're pulling number 10 for sure.
I move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Go back to queuing.
Yeah.
No discussion? Please vote. And the vote is 5-0. It passes 5-0.
Item 19, I move that the board approve the advertising.
Mrs. Brown, I'm sorry.
We're changing those.
We need to change that, because what you're doing with this motion, assuming someone chooses to make it, is to rescind the.
Oh, I remember what I voted for it.
You're rescinding the. The appropriate motion would be for the board to rescind approval of the changes advertised to the 2019-20 student progression plan as presented on January 21st, and to approve the advertisement of the changes to the 2019-20 student progression plan as presented.
That's what I intended to do. Do I have to repeat it all?
You can so move that.
I move that.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And so that the board and the public understands, you had previously approved changes to advertise. You are now, in essence, undoing those changes and approving to advertise the new change, which is the 17 residency hours, but not the 8 credits or courses. That will be advertised for the 28-day period, and then assuming it's approved for advertising purposes, and then that would come back in March for a vote on final approval.
Okay. Please vote. Did you vote already, Shirley?
I did. I had confirmed.
And the vote is 3-2. It passes. Okay, the next one is item 20. We did 19. Item 20.
I make a motion that the school board authorize staff and council negotiate a contract with Florida School Board Association, conduct the search for a new superintendent.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the new thing of compromise and whatnot. There's a lot of angst of what previously happened with the FSBA, but I'm willing to look at my fellow board members. That they're going to vouch for them a second time. Let's give FSBA a kiss and make up and give FSBA a second chance. I am going to, say it does, cause concern, and that we have the 3 school board members who are really heavily involved in FSBA, and I just want to make sure that all 5 of us are equally involved in the search of the superintendent.
You saw that.
Okay, I saw that. That I just want to make sure that all of our rights are equal amongst the 5 of us. In the essence of cooperation, I don't usually make motions up here.
No, I know you don't.
Yeah. So yes, duly noted, or even second them. So I took the option of making the motion for this one, and Madam Ziegler seconded it.
Okay. Mrs. Brown?
Well, you put me in an awkward position because I actually was going for the other group. And for some of the same reasons that you just said, so that we can't come back after the fact and say, well, it was the FSBA and it was you 3 guys who did it, and then we wanted somebody else. I almost would have liked to have seen what another group would have done to compare the 2. Oh, please. But I can change my vote. I will go along with what you all say. I mean, they've always said I was a go along to get along kind of person.
Who says that?
Mrs. Ziegler.
Who says that?
Mrs. Ziegler.
God, for distracting.
I think I'm torn. I'm a 50-50 here. I have concerns, but again, I've really enjoyed working with Bill Vogel in the past. So that helped me. I think I'd echo what Mr. Robinson said. I will say that your involvement isn't I mean, that's your choice. It's my choice not to be a part of that organization. So, I mean, I think that's to be fair. But I do want to ensure that there's equal weight, there's full transparency. If there's something I'm not at for whatever reason because it's an FSBA thing, and Mr. Robinson, I think you're a member.
No.
So just if you could respectfully keep that in mind and bring that, make sure that we don't miss things, because that's separate. This is our board together to work together. So I like, as I said right before this, I said I'm willing to compromise on this one. I want us to get it right. I want us to work together, and I want us to put the best foot forward. And I think so. I'll support it.
Now, I'll tell you, I wasn't sure who I was going to vote for because both of them are equal.
Yeah, me too.
So I will support the motion for FSBA. But I'm serious.
It doesn't sound like they're doing us a favor, Bridget.
You can amend a motion. You can amend.
Please vote.
Okay.
We wanted unanimous.
And that's what we're giving you.
You have to vote. Now you have to confirm it.
Wait, somebody is not. I only see 4 votes up there.
Motion carries 4-1.
I had voted.
Shirley was too busy.
And the
those who can't teach those who can.
Vote passes 5-0. We have a unanimous decision. Yay! We're going to celebrate. Any additional comments? No, I have one. I have to comment.
All right.
I said part of this before, and I'd like to reiterate it with the seriousness that I feel. And that is that we only can act as a board when we're here at a meeting. We cannot act on our own. We should not be asking for major reports on our own. I can tell you that we're driving staff nuts, and they're not going to tell you that, but we are. We have to become more a board together rather than an individual going out and asking for reports. We had tried, and I know that some of the board members were not in favor of it, if the request is going to take X amount of time from staff, that we bring it to the board and ask the board as a whole to ask for the material. I would like to put that out there again. That doesn't stop us from talking to staff, but it stops us from micromanaging staff and making sure they have every report they give us. I mean, I think it's insane what's been going on. So I would appreciate it, at least that it runs through Mitzi so that she has an idea of what's being asked for, of her staff, not our staff, her staff. And that's all I want to say. Anyone want to talk, say anything? You can.
When's the next meeting?
The 23rd. I don't have it.
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today, the 21st.
The next meeting will be on February 18th at 3 o'clock, preceded by a workshop at a time to be determined.
Thank you.
Oh.
I did not have it. She normally gives it to me. Didn't get it. Did you have a lot of turbulence?
No, I didn't today. It was beautiful, but I was on a brand new plane coming out of Washington this morning, which was fabulous.
No.
Nice to have seen you all.
I'm serious.
I know. Adios.
Adios.
I really was going to go with the other firm.
I wasn't sure where I was going to go. I was waiting for the board. Actually, honest to God.
I don't want them coming back.